Charlie died with his soul intact. Dying with his soul intact. He said no. He said no to a lot of money.
Candace Owens just dropped an explosive update saying she's finally connected every thread, and now she's convinced, at least in her interpretation, that Charlie Kirk was blindsided by people who should have been closest to him. In her telling, nothing about this situation was random. She suggests there's a deeper current running beneath everything, involving figures inside Turning Point USA and even several familiar faces who stood on stage during his memorial. Owens is promising to name names and present the evidence she believes points to betrayal, and she's already begun doing exactly that. What she claims to have uncovered about a certain French-American investor is downright wild. And the craziest part? I stumbled across something online that some viewers think might support her theory, a hidden thread that, if true, would add fuel to her narrative. But here's where the tension spikes. For the first time since all of this began, people across social media are openly calling for Erica Kirk to speak out. The pressure around her is building, and everyone is watching to see what she says, or doesn't say, next. So let's break this down piece by piece, because the details surfacing in this storyline are absolutely unreal. If even a fraction of what Owens is alleging holds weight, it could dramatically reshape how people interpret everything that's been whispered behind the scenes. Here's what she actually promised: to release the full set of information she says convinced her that key individuals within Turning Point USA's leadership played a role in what she describes as betrayal. Heavy claims, and the clip she posted dives deep into the people she believes are connected. The focus lands on Turning Point USA COO, Justin Streif, and the French-American investor whose name is now swirling through the conversation. I dug into the chatter myself, and what surfaced was shocking. You'll want to pay very close attention.
But it was actually a tip that I received early on that pulled everything together for me in a really dark way. It was water cooler talk at Turning Point USA immediately after Charlie's assassination. A few people had signified and were speculating and thinking about things that were weird. And, I told you we had so many people from Turning Point USA that were just...
This part hits hard because it ties together power, money, and influence in a way that's impossible to ignore. According to the story unfolding, right after the explosive incident, Streif made a mysterious late-night call to a major investor named Pierre Devant, a high-profile financier at a shadowy private equity firm. But it gets stranger. Devant also sits on the board of the Devant Freedom Foundation, an organization known for backing projects that perpetuate the legacy of a prominent political figure. Here's the twist that's sending shockwaves through insiders. The foundation is based in Delaware, the same place where the investigation has been zeroing in for months. The timing, the connections, the money, everything is lining up too neatly to be coincidental, and then it really starts to feel like a scene straight out of a political thriller. Devant, who once lived in Wilmington, Delaware, served as a director at the prestigious law firm Richards, Layton and Finch until 2014. But here's the jaw-dropper. The same firm now represents the high-profile advocate at the center of this entire saga. Even more eerie, their offices are located inside Rodney Square, the very building that also houses a federal agency overseeing sensitive arrivals, including foreign diplomats and dignitaries. And according to an anonymous source, this agency handles details that could change everything if the claims are even half-truth.
Venting in our tip box and telling us that they didn't like the way management was acting and things were weird, and there were just a flurry of things that were coming in. And a few of them had signified that one of the things that was being whispered about that people thought was quite odd that they learned that happened on the day of Charlie's assassination.
Possibly even minutes after Charlie Kirk's death, and that is precisely what turns this entire situation into a ticking explosive. Because Pierre Devant isn't just another financier floating around political nonprofits. His surname is practically stitched into the fabric of Delaware's power structure. The Devant lineage runs deep, a dynasty of old wealth, entrenched influence, and generational reach stretching across boardrooms and government halls alike. So when Candace draws a direct line from one of them to the innermost circles of Turning Point USA, the room goes silent. People listen. Fast. The mixture of legacy influence, sudden involvement, and suspicious timing is the type of thing that doesn't just make headlines, it hijacks them. Not just in political commentary, but in financial columns, investigative blogs, and even mainstream outlets that usually stay miles away from this world. As journalists and online sleuths started peeling back the layers of Pierre's professional life, more threads emerged. His role at Surdy Partners, a private equity group managing high-value portfolios tied to corporations, charities, and quiet power players, suddenly took on new weight. But what really grabbed attention was the firm's unassuming yet persistent footprint in Wilmington, a city that keeps reappearing like a location you're meant to notice in a conspiracy thriller, even before this saga erupted. Delaware was already a point of interest in Candace's investigation, a place defined by compact, elite networks. A state where thousands of shadowy LLCs hide behind mailboxes, where prestigious law firms shape political strategy, where old families steer influence from behind closed doors. Now throw in a name like Duvant, and the entire narrative starts reading like a script from a high-stakes political suspense series, and according to Candace, one detail refuses to be ignored. Timelines don't bend. They don't misremember. They don't lie. Just moments after the event that claimed Charlie Kirk's life, a call, allegedly, went out from Justin Strife directly to Pierre Duvant. A call that may have set everything else into motion.
It's possible it could have just been a very close donor friend. Charlie had them. He did. There were some donors that he loved like family members. And so that was a potential long shot thing, but just interesting. I'd like to know who he was so close to that required an immediate call. Then it turns out that these ladies told me that this donor actually had a pretty big piece of bait on the hook for Turning Point USA.
What could the COO of a major organization possibly be discussing at that exact moment? That question has been gnawing at observers ever since the clip surfaced. Was it a routine business call? Damage control? Or, as Candace hinted, something far more calculated, a premeditated coordination that would ripple through the organization? While no hard evidence has emerged proving any misconduct, the pattern alone is enough to make even the most skeptical pause. Every time these names appear together, the public grows more insistent. We want answers. And when Candace shared her discoveries on social media, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands flooded in, some praising her courage for speaking out, others warning that she might have just opened Pandora's box. Then, the story twisted again. Reports emerged suggesting that the very building housing the Wilmington law firm and the FBI office may have been handling sensitive international communications during the same week of Charlie's death. That revelation ignited a wildfire online. The notion that such a small slice of geography could link so many key players, from Turning Point USA officials to influential financiers, was unsettling. Investigators and independent journalists began sifting through Delaware's public records, piecing together contracts, board memberships, and overlapping legal ties. Each discovery, though small on its own, hinted at connections between Turning Point USA and the Duvant family's philanthropic ventures. The deeper the search went, the more the web seemed to tighten, a tangled network of influence, power, and opportunity that was impossible to ignore.
A piece of their billion-dollar company. They were anticipating some IPO, and that this was going to be life-changing money. Okay, we're not talking like, oh, a check that's going to be reeled in for $5 million or $10 million or $50 million or like the $90 million that Turning Point USA raised in the first couple of weeks following Charlie's assassination.
Went on their own. Each document looks like nothing more than routine paperwork, boring, harmless, forgettable. But when you place them side by side, the picture that emerges is anything but ordinary. It's a puzzle with too many matching edges, too many overlapping shadows, and every new piece raises the stakes. People close to Charlie have finally started talking, revealing details that now feel chilling in hindsight. In the days leading up to his death, he wasn't himself. Friends noticed the shift, the tension in his voice, the way he kept glancing over his shoulder, the quiet paranoia creeping into his conversations. A few recall him mentioning pressure from above, though no one understood what he was referring to. Others insist he was simply exhausted, crushed by the weight of his responsibilities and the relentless spotlight. But whatever the truth was, something around him had undeniably changed in those last weeks, and now, as more fragments surface, the spotlight has swung sharply onto Erica Kirk. Until recently, she stayed silent, carefully, strategically silent. But the rising speculation has created a storm she can no longer outrun. For the first time, the public is asking uncomfortable questions. What does she know? Has she been told the same things Candace keeps hinting at? Why hasn't she spoken up? Every quiet pause from her only fuels the fire further. Fans dissect her interviews frame by frame, analyzing her expressions, her tone, her choice of words like forensic investigators searching for cracks. Meanwhile, Candace isn't slowing down. She keeps dropping new documents, timestamps, and pieces of evidence she claims prove a hidden alliance between certain Turning Point executives and outside financiers. Her tone has shifted entirely, no longer cautious, no longer hinting. Now she's steady, unwavering, almost surgical. She openly suggests this wasn't some messy internal disagreement, but something designed, built, with intention. Something coordinated. Yet, she still stops short of accusing anyone of a crime. Her focus remains locked on one theme: betrayal from within.
We are talking like billionaire money, potentially billions of dollars, and this was a very big secret, a huge secret. Just a handful of people were allowed to even know about this, that this was happening. In fact, there's probably people that are watching this right now at Turning Point USA who work in donations. I think it's a pretty large department that have no idea, have never even heard of this, because that's how incredibly top-level secret this was, okay?
Mixed motive. Conflict of interest. Terms that keep you legally safe, yet hit like a hammer emotionally. Meanwhile, Turning Point USA has stayed almost entirely silent, offering no official response to Candace's claims. And that silence? It's a vacuum that speculation rushes to fill. People read quiet as guilt, even if it's just caution. But the longer the organization hesitates, the harder it becomes to control the narrative spiraling out of their hands. And then there's Delaware, the location that won't quit. Time and again, it keeps appearing. The law firm, the Freedom Foundation, the investor ties, it's as if every investigative thread converges there. If these connections are more than coincidence, it suggests multiple key players were simultaneously operating in political, financial, and organizational spheres at the exact moment the tragedy struck. That's why this story refuses to fade. For Candace, it's no longer just about Charlie Kirk. It's about shedding light on what she sees as a culture of silence and complicity inside institutions with immense power. She's demanding accountability, transparency, and a complete audit of Turning Point's leadership. Whether she succeeds remains uncertain. But one thing is crystal clear: she isn't backing down. The fallout has reverberated far beyond internal politics, shaking conservative circles and online forums alike. Audiences are split. Some hail her courage, seeing her as risking everything to reveal the truth. Others dismiss her as chasing shadows. Yet, even critics acknowledge one reality: she's forced uncomfortable questions into the public arena, questions that refuse to leave. The deeper you dig, the more this story reads like a thriller about loyalty, wealth, influence, and power, and no one knows where it will end.
But people began to find out about this because of just an unfortunate conversation that had been left unattended to. Okay? Now, why was the secret supposed to be so guarded? Why is this person getting a phone call? I wanted to know. I wanted to know more. And I start messaging our mommy sleuths and our daddy sleuths and all of my sources at Turning Point USA, and I'm saying anything that you can tell me about this in case this might be important. And I got an answer on the name of a donor, and I had completely forgotten because, again, this happened so early following the assassination.
Bro, this isn't just about politics. Somewhere buried in the tangled web lies the truth about what really happened to Charlie Kirk. Whether it emerges from whistleblowers, leaked files, or someone inside finally breaking their silence, the world is on edge, waiting for the next piece of the puzzle to drop. At this point, the story of Charlie Kirk's final days has taken on a life of its own. What began as a handful of scattered claims has spiraled into a labyrinth of connections that can't be ignored. Each week, fresh details surface: emails, travel logs, statements, each layer deepening the mystery. And the most unnerving part? Nearly every lead circles back to the same cluster of people and the same locations. Delaware, once just another quiet hub for business and banking, has become the epicenter of questions that refuse to fade. Investors, law firms, foundations, all interlinked, all pointing to a state now whispered about as the small place with enormous secrets. Candace Owens isn't slowing down. If anything, she's intensifying her pursuit, demanding that those involved answer publicly. Her latest revelation shined the spotlight squarely on Erica Kirk, and that's where the tension has truly spiked. For months, Erica maintained silence, sidestepping public conflict, carefully guarding her image of faith and resilience. But silence can be a double-edged sword. It can make you a magnet for scrutiny. People online are relentlessly asking, what did she know, and when did she know it? Did she witness the friction between Charlie and his team? Was she aware of the critical calls being made in those final, pivotal hours? These questions aren't going away, and the digital world won't let them fade until she addresses them head-on. Candace has made one thing clear: she isn't dealing in rumor or hearsay. She claims to have documents, credible sources, and whistleblowers ready to substantiate every piece of her story. And as the pieces fall into place, the tension is only growing, pulling everyone deeper into a narrative that feels more like a thriller than real life.